Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Clemens. Servus. I come from here, from Vienna. Spent most of my life here and spent most of my life with Ruby, at least most of my developer life. I've started with Ruby on Rails with version 1.2 back then. I knew nobody who used it in production, also I didn't. I was kind of still at university, having a side job, doing PHP, and kind of in my free time, I tried out this magic new thing called Rails, and it was really a mind blow, and it has been a love relationship ever since. I work as an independent contractor, mostly doing Ruby projects. More recently, also some AI projects like everyone does these days, right? And yeah, I love tricky challenges. So what I do, what I prefer to do is actually debugging or performance optimizations, cleaning up architecture and code, making everything like shiny and nice to work with. But I don't like DevOps. So that's something where I'm always like, you do it. I stay away from it. And I found a DevCraft Academy, which is a mentoring program for junior web developers. And recently I founded Railscraft together with a freelance friend of mine, where we take over ancient Rails applications and revitalize them or renovate them, update them, keep them alive, because Rails has seen many years already, and there are a lot of Rails applications out there which still need love to be able to stay alive. But now to the topic of the talk. This is a code talk, so this is like the almost last slide of this talk. If you want to check out the code that we are talking about today, this is the link to the GitHub repo. I can also post it in a meetup group later on, so you don't have to write it down or take a picture now. Let's just take a look at this repo that we're going to work with. It's called Ruby Shop. It's standard Rails 8 application. You can tell by the Kamal folder here. And it's really simple, a demo Rails 8 application for a Ruby meetup talk on advanced filtering and sorting techniques in Rails using SQL views, Scenic, and Ransack. So who knows everything that was mentioned here? Hans, the only one. Okay, who of you knows SQL views? Does it ring a bell what that is? Okay, like more than half. Then do you know Scenic? Okay, nice. You will know Scenic afterwards. And Ransack. Okay, so what is Ransack made for? Filtering and sorting, right?
Is it very old? Like I think I used that 12 years ago.
Yeah, but it's still actively maintained, and I think still the go-to solution if you go to. Let's have a look. Ruby Toolbox, Ransack. I think my hotspot isn't that well. Okay, so Rails search filters. Let's look in this category. Yeah, and it's still at number 1 listed in the Ruby Toolbox. Latest release, in July. So still something that you can use in production projects, I would say. Oldie but goldie. Okay, and the reason why I created this talk was because I was creating a kind of a pet application of mine where I did a lot of data aggregation and things like that. And I wanted to present this data in an index page, kind of like in a table, like for example in our Ruby shop. That's what the application looks like that I've created, that we just had a look at the repo. I've got these normal attributes, right? I've got Ruby shirt. I've got price, I've got created date, and then I've got an average rating. And this average rating isn't part of the same table, of course, but it's aggregated, right? It's calculated over these 3 ratings. And the problem with this is that it's not that easy to search and filter on this attribute, on an aggregated attribute, by using standard tools like Ransack. What is Ransack? We just had a look at it. How does it work? You can see here that there is this weird Q parameter up here, which somehow says name descending. And when I click this link here, it says name ascending, and I can do the same for the price. And so this parameter changes up here, and so does the filtering. And how this works is, if I look at the controller of this application, you can see that we just say product.ransack, and we pass as argument the Ransack params. And if you look at the Ransack params, which are down here, it's just this parameter q or an empty hash, just to avoid nil values. But I mean, that's all we need to do to have a whole model sorted or filtered. We just need to say we want to ransack this model, and then ask for the result, and magically it will apply the right active record order statement for us. So that's kind of trivial for all the attributes that are included with the product, right? But the problem is this average rating here that we also want to use to sort, or we could also use it for filtering. So maybe let's have a look at the template right now to see how the average is calculated. So we can see here, I iterate over these products. I've got the product name, then the price, dates, and then I do this average calculation here with a default of 0 if there are no averages yet, and then I just output like a pluralized version of the stars. Who can already spot a little problem here? n+1, n+1. Exactly. So we're calculating the average rating here for every product. So there's not really a problem for a list with 4 entries. But if this grows a lot, then we're gonna run into problems here. Also, it's not really nice to do this kind of calculations in the template, because it's super easy to forget about n+1 things if you're in a loop, within a loop, or something like that. So we want to get rid of this thing as well, right? So because we actually want to query the whole list of products, including the average rating, in one query. That would be ideal, right? So how can we do that?
Make a view.
We can make a view. Exactly. There would be some other ways as well, or something that we might want to consider. I mean, we can have a scope with some custom SQL. That would be one way to do it, although that's not really that compatible with Ransack. I've tried it, and unfortunately, if we add a column to this select statement, then Ransack complains that it's not actually a column of this table that it wants to apply filtering on, because it always puts the table name in front, right? Or the P for products, and then it doesn't work. Also, what we could consider for some similar cases are generated columns. Do you know what that is? It's kind of a feature since we're at 7. I mean, you could use it before as well if you used structure SQL. But now we've got this nice syntax in migrations where we can say we want to create a column of type virtual, or a virtual column where we provide a statement which calculates this column based on some other columns. And we can even store it physically as a column in the database, which means that we can also index it, which would be nice for performance reasons if we want to filter on it. What's the disadvantage here and why can't we use it for the average rating?
Kind of references something in the row, but not something in a different table.
Exactly. So they're limited to attributes of the same row. So here we've got this height centimeter attribute, right? So we can calculate it with the height centimeter, but it wouldn't work if we needed to join something else in order to calculate it. So for example, in our shop, we could calculate a VAT column if we knew that the VAT is always the same, 20% or something like that. We could perfectly have another stored column which gets updated whenever the product price gets updated containing the VAT. But it doesn't work for our stars. And that's where SQL views come in handy. For the SQL views, so what are SQL views? That may be the first good question. SQL views are kind of an alias for an SQL query. For example, if we have the statement select star and the average rating from the products joining the ratings grouped by the product, then we could create a view referencing a view with a name referencing this whole select statement. And the cool thing is that we could use the name of this view like we use any other SQL table. So this means we can also use it as a model in Rails, because active record models need a backing table, but this table can also be a view. And that's what we're going to do right now. One disadvantage that we might think of when we use views with SQL statements is that we have to get rid of our beautiful schema.rb file, right? It's so I've been so hesitant about making this switch from schema.rb to structure SQL in the past. It's always like, do I really need this now? Because from now on, my life will be super messy when I make this step. So we want to keep the schema.rb, and that's actually one of the main reasons why we want to use a gem which supports views, and that's Cynic. So yeah, Cynic views. I mean, you get the pun, right? The cool thing about Cynic is that for once we have a generator which can generate the views for us, and as we can see, this generator generates us an SQL file where we can do our fancy magic with adding a custom query for our view. And then it creates a migration. And here's an example. You can put this into the SQL statement and afterwards in the SQL file, and then you just say rake db migrate. And this SQL statement is applied to this new view. So let's have a look at our, hold on. I think it's easiest if I show you a pull request with what we need to do to make this work. So first step, we need to install Cynic. Cool. So then we've got it also in our gem file log. You can see, okay, it doesn't require a lot of subgems. That's also nice. Then next step is actually running this generator, which creates us this SQL file. And there I put in like select product ID, name, price, created at, and then I want to calculate the average rating of the stars. Like we joined that, the ratings, and I want to calculate the average. Who knows what coalesce, is that the word? How to pronounce it? Who knows what that does?
As all the expression practice 1 by 1 until the first finish, but it is
Non-null, exactly. And when would we have null here from the average? Exactly. So that came also as a surprise to me a little bit, huh? Average from nothing is null. Makes sense. I expected it to be 0, but yeah. So we provide a default value here as 0. So we've got a strictly numerical column. And we also calculate a count also of the ratings. From products, we left join the ratings, and we group by the product's ID. So far, so good. And then we've got the migration, which is also generated with the same generator call in the terminal. And this just looks like this, right? Create view, product details. That's it. The cool thing is, if we needed to change the view later on, we would just run the same generator. It would create a copy of this product details V01, name it V02, same content. Then we would just edit it, edit the version 2, and run the migration again. And then, well, the new view would be in place, and we could roll it back if we wanted to, and like we're used to working with database migrations. Cool. So what does the schema DB look like then? Schema RB. It's got this create view statement in here, and you can see the SQL of the view just got added to the schema RB file as a string. So that's, I think, a pretty elegant solution, because now we can still see, say, schema load, and it would just bring up the whole database, including the view, the whole database schema, with just one command, and we don't need to run the migrations for that. Okay, what else did we change? You can see, okay, before there was this product model, and it contained ransackable attributes. So that's kind of a security feature that you have to define the attributes that you want to make accessible for ransack explicitly, so nobody could like inject parameters in the query, query of the URL that you actually don't want to expose. So we had this on the product, but now we've moved it to a new model, which is called product detail. There I also defined read-only true, which is just kind of a way of telling the Rails application we can't write here. So whenever we would call save or something on this model, it would raise an exception and say this model is read-only. And yeah, so this stayed pretty much the same. We've got created that, name and price, but we've also got the average rating now in here, which means that our average rating is now also sortable. And in our index HTML ERB, we've got rid of our average calculation, which is awesome, because now we just read the attribute without recalculating the average over and over again. And we can use this sort link, which is something that Ransack gives us. You've seen it, right? This is the sort link with these nice arrows. These should also be available on the rating now once we apply this pull request. So let's do it. Hold on. First, let's look at the database queries that happen when we run the old version. So I refresh now, and we can see, okay, it loads the product, and then it calculates the average and the rating count and the count over and over again. For each of my 4 records that I'm displaying, it does these 2 queries, right? And that's what we actually should get rid of. When I check out this other branch now, Cynic, and probably I need to run rails-db migrate. Yay, so now it ran the create product details migration, which should create my view. And now if I refresh, we can see, well, there's only one select statement left, which also does the average calculation, but where is it? We don't see it, right? It just says select product details star from product details, order by product details created at. Well, the average calculation, everything happens in the view, and that's kind of hidden from us, so we don't see the SQL from the view over and over again, but that's kind of database internal. So you might say, well, but that's not so nice, because when we add a lot of attributes to this view with a lot of calculations, things will get slower and slower again when we use our application. And that's only partially true, because we don't always, in every situation, need to run the entire view or load the entire view. We can still say we want to select only a few attributes from the view, and then PostgreSQL will be smart enough to only perform the calculations of the view which are actually needed in our selected result set. So we could also have a show page, for example, for the product details, where we don't display the average, but maybe some other calculations, and then it would still only calculate the things that we need on that page if we provide the selected attributes explicitly. Okay, so what we still haven't seen is how it would sort on the ratings now. And you can see, well, it works. And now the statement is just order by product detail average rating, which is this calculated attribute we defined on the view. But now Ransack is happy, because it can still use the table prefix on the column to sort. And yeah, we are also happy, because in fact our Ruby code got less instead of more, and we've hidden all the aggregation logic actually in this SQL view. So that's a discussion point actually that I wanted to talk with you about. Is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? Because some people argue, well, we actually want to code Ruby and not SQL. We try so hard using active records and yeah, the DSL it provides us, and now you tell us write more custom SQL in views. What's your take on this?
You should process data as close to the source of data as possible. So in this case, you process data inside of SQL, inside of Postgres. So that's the reasons. So we don't need to load not required data.
Okay. Who's next? You?
Me? That's the point where basically taking the same argument, more or less, but using the right language to represent the problem. So I can say the database, directly the database language problem better than like trying to implement the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes?
So as a Ruby developer, we all love Ruby so much. We like to solve all the problems with Ruby. So we have used that, meaning your HTTP request response cycle to develop it in terms of objects, and your application gets slower and slower. So from time to time, it's good to move some of these code into the Postgres database. We develop it into object, into VM, all kind of stuff. So You know, if you use Ruby for everything, you can share some of your performance from your role in the VM or the database. So if you overuse your VM, you probably only use your VM. So I think you can have to find a good way. Recently, we've been through a lot of these changes, and we moved a lot of stuff into a Postgres, but then if you do everything on your Postgres, then you sync up your database. So you need to use power and performance where you have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just one more. I totally agree with everything that has been said. And also, I want to say, if you find yourself putting too much business logic into these views, like if you find yourself doing, say, X rates or something that go into that query or the definition of the view, then I might say that's too much because that's not where you would expect that logic to be.
Yeah.
The average calculation that is super simple, that totally makes sense to me, then put into the view. But everything that's even a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is even without the view, the average calculation was done by Postgres in the database. So like you call the same function. The only thing that you change is who generates the SQL, because earlier active record on our generate the query string, and now you wrote the query string yourself. So it would be actually interesting in this case maybe that you could maybe add this to Scenic or a Newsroom or whatever, to just use active record to create the query that you wrote, kind of manually wrote into your SQL file, because I mean you could as well like have this be
Expanded.
active record query that is used by Scenic or whatever to get the query string that is then put into the view, because then you would kind of have mixture query, like you would have the same code, but just some way different. But it's still not like manually with an SQL. You would just still be able to use active record.
Maybe I want to think that I think here with having this classic trade-off, like they make something more performant, but make it maybe a bit less transparent. But if I'm a new developer and look at this, I'm thinking, how we're getting the average. I need to know, okay, I'm using Scenic, this need some more domain knowledge. So I think that's a trade-off that we have to make and to decide, but also the surfacing this fact that we're using Scenic and here's a view in the database would be lovely to have, like, you know, a query or the log statement that hints at what is happening here, or maybe a sneak box. But I think that's something to be aware of, that there's a lot more indirection and abstraction and transparency. But yeah, can be worth it.
Yes.
Can I join associations to the view model? Like
yes.
The product has owner or something like that?
We could even define an association in Ruby code. For example, we could even say our product details model belongs to a product and have a product ID column as well, which is just the same as the ID, in fact. So belongs to or has many statements don't require a foreign key. We can't define a foreign key constraint. That doesn't work on views. But in fact, it's just a naming convention, right? So this lookup of belongs to also works just for normal attributes that we can define on views as well. Yeah, thanks for your, two more statements.
I only write the state because I'm would raise in the style, but is there a possibility to do this without view, but only with the
Yeah, definitely. You can also provide the statement directly in the Ruby code. We can also in the controller say, for example, product dot, what is it, find by SQL or something like that, right? And then pass the whole SQL string.
Thinking regular base, then execute,
yeah, without without binding it to a specific model. we could also build a statement like this with like active record DSL. Yeah, that would actually work. Yeah, I think that would work with the DSL. But the point here is why we didn't do that is because when we use ransack for this filtering, then we actually need a model which has these attributes. And we wouldn't be able to do that without this containing view. At least I don't know a way. Maybe it's possible, but I haven't found another way. Yeah, thanks for all your comments. One more.
What I do also like about this is that you decouple your race views from the naked models, the database. So you can streamline the views to the database views, and also use it for logging and stuff like that. So you know that, okay, this view is used for, like, you can couple them, like they belong together, they count it, and so how does it work if you, I mean, the migration should fail if you remove a column and you still have it in the view, right?
Yes, and that's also one of the strengths that I see here. That is actually making sure at the build time, at the migration time, that your whole queries still work. Whereas when you have a scope, for example, it might be that you, I don't know, rename a column for whatever reason or remove it, and it's still mentioned in your scope somewhere in the model. Nothing complains unless you have tests that validate that it exists. But here the migration will fail, saying you can't remove this column because it's still referenced in this view. But it's kind of a static typing, or yeah, maybe it's not really static typing, but the same kind of system where during compilation of your database schema, it is ensured that everything is consistent and it works. Yeah, thanks a lot. So. Okay.
We went straight into the question section.
No, it's actually, I was just asking about comments because I've still got something to say later on, but no, I think it's really valuable. So please.
So this is just a basic view. And what about materialized view if you want to refresh the view?
Yes. So that's something we haven't covered, and that's a good transition here. So far, we said views are aliases for queries, right? And they're evaluated on the fly when we run a statement like this, when we say select product details, under the hood, it runs this query. But that doesn't have to be the case because PostgreSQL also offers a feature called materialized views. And what this does is it runs this query once, and you say create materialized view, and then it stores the result as a table. So whenever we run this query again, then it will actually query this persisted table and not do the average calculations and everything again. Is that a good idea? Depends on the case. Here, no, because every time we would add a rating, we would have to wipe the entire materialized view and recalculate it, because otherwise it would be inconsistent with the data, right? But it can be a good idea if, for example, you want to use reports of historical data that doesn't change anymore. When we want to, I don't know, web analytics, for example, or store analytics, when we want to calculate on past orders, which don't change anymore, what the average order value was, where our customers from the orders came from, stuff like that. So data that we derive from past data that doesn't change anymore. It's actually really cool to have a materialized view, and especially when you have a lot, like big data, and one second, and your query would take, I don't know, minutes or maybe even an hour to run because the data is so huge, or even several hours also exists. Yes, please.
Yeah, those are the rest for time today.
Yes.
Basically, adds features with handling time to this data, and then you get basically more the feature of the extended materialized views where you can then on certain intervals the materialized views in the background are automatically recalculated and you don't have to so it's parallel that's by yourself.
Yes. Yeah, one disadvantage of materialized views, if you don't use timescale DB, is that you always have to trigger updates manually, right? I don't know the statement. Is it update view or something like that? Refresh materialized view. And then it would run this whole query again and store the results. Now that means your data is actually always old, right? For example, you generate a report of the past, I don't know, like from midnight until the beginning of time of historic data. But then your view ends last day midnight. So one thing that you could do, like little hack, is you could have a materialized view with this statement, and you could have a normal view, not materialized, with this statement, and then you just do a union on it. So for the materialized view, you would say select everything that's in there, and for the normal view, you would say everything after midnight. Then you would have the old stored data, which is super fast to retrieve, and today's data, which is completely up to date and is also limited because it's just for today. So this is a solution which actually scales, kind of. I mean, yeah, eventually your materialized view will also get huge, but then you can still solve that. What else did I want to talk about? Yeah, what are the problems with this approach? I mean, you can see the log is super clean, right? It says only select product details, but this can also be a problem when your REST application is slow in production and you investigate it and you just see, well, it's such a simple SQL query taking so long. Why is that happening? And then actually it takes a few more mental steps to figure out what's actually happening and what's actually slow, because the queries aren't the real queries aren't in the log of Sentry or whatever. Yeah, so that it might get a bit more difficult to debug. Also, what you already mentioned, for junior developers or new people joining your team, it might not really be obvious where this whole thing is performed. However, yeah, it's actually one more pattern in your application that you have to teach everything. But as long as you don't have 30 different patterns or something, it should be quite easy. And I think personally, I mean, the reason also why I got upon this is because I was working on a historically grown application where like dozens of developers have been working on, each contributing their own flavor. And they used Ransec initially, but then it got too complicated because they had these things in there, like some aggregations and joining other tables and stuff like that. And that's when they kind of fell back to Ruby and fetched everything that was possible with Ransec. But then in Ruby, they would do some more filtering based on some custom params, get params, and some more ordering in Ruby arrays and stuff like that. And that's actually much more complicated to understand than having a pattern like this in place where you have to write some custom SQL. But I mean, at least it's a standard way of handling things. What I would recommend when these things grow is really to add a lot of comments. I know as Rubyists, we don't like comments so much. We always say method names have to be descriptive and you have to refactor everything so it makes sense and stuff like that. But I mean, come on, this is SQL. So not really as much possible in there. And I would personally still, add how are SQL comments like this, right? Yeah, thank you, Copilot. Yeah, that's actually a great tool to do that as well, because Copilot will understand your views probably better than you at some point, and then it can add this descriptive comments for you.
Why didn't you name the view like product view ratings or product?
Yeah, good question. Details might not be a very descriptive name, like data, for example. Yeah, there's certainly some room for improvement. I mean, you could also create different views for different aspects or different concerns, kind of replacing concerns with views. So having different models of the same table for different parts of your application, that could actually make sense. And then you would, of course, think a little bit better about naming to represent this aspect of your application that this view is about. Yeah, but still, personally, I think it's nice. I've also been using it in a project, but I wouldn't overdo it either, because these views, they grow quite fast if you overdo it, and then, yeah. So, is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? Let's have a look. Have I still got some tabs open that we didn't talk about? We've talked about Cynic. Yeah, we've talked about that we can actually make new versions of it. There we've also got like some associations. We can also use materialize views with it. We've also covered them. Yeah, I think basically we're done. Thanks a lot. Also, thanks for your contributions. Yeah, if you want to keep in touch with me, come to LinkedIn. I think I quit all social media apart from LinkedIn. I think I will still stay there a little bit. And we've still got time for some questions,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we already did a bunch of questions. This discussion turned into a question session in between, but do we have maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 more questions if there are any?
I have one.
You have one?
You just showed us how to make
some kind of views fit in smoothly. Do you have any idea if you can do such things also with stored procedures? Because you can do a lot more powerful things with stored procedures, right?
I've got no idea.
Okay.
No, at least Cynic doesn't support it.
Okay.
It's only made for views.
That was actually my question.
Calling a stored procedure, how would you actually do that? I mean, you could wrap it in a Ruby method and then make a custom SQL call, right?
Yeah.
Did you call the stored procedure in a view?
The thing with the stored procedure is that you can do like multiple selects and things like that. So if you need queries a little bit more powerful,
Yeah.
I would prefer that.
I think I've only used them in triggers so far. I think I haven't even used. Is it possible to call them in a select statement?
Yes,
Probably
it
yes,
is.
right? And
Yeah,
it
there is.
would generate more. Yeah.
Yes.
what kind of procedure it is, like different kinds. Some of them look eternity or but that you can use in the select statements, some more, or some of them are some function where you use to calculate things. And then use up it's a factory kind of calculation, but in the value, and it returns them function value. So you can use it for other select statements, so that's certain methods.
That sounds like a perfect talk for next Vienna.rb.
More questions? One more maybe? Yeah.
Kind of in the same vein, not to advocate for it, but how do you feel about triggers? You said, because you could do something that is kind of in between the virtual calculated columns and a materialized view, where you would have a trigger that would just like kind of calculate the average rating, for example, and write that to the product database table, and that row you just updated or inserted. That's kind of somewhere in between. So like you have this pre-calculated value, but it would also kind of update itself if you get the trigger right.
Yeah. So the problem I see with updating values and triggers is that it only runs once the trigger is defined, right? So for data that was done before, or if the trigger was different before, then it did some kind of different calculation, or it did no calculation if the trigger wasn't defined. So the nice things about the views and doing these calculations on the fly is that it always involves all the past data, and once I change the view, the calculation changes for everything, right? Of course, storing it or persisting the data only when a record is saved and then store it for good is much more performant. But yeah, I think it really depends. I rarely use triggers, because using triggers means having to convert my schema RB to structure SQL.
Debugging sometimes can be hard.
Yeah.
It was for me. If you got problems.
Yeah, I think triggers always kind of come with some regret later, but that's where I was asking how you feel about it.
Yeah, I also don't like before save, these kind of things, because it also makes it kind of complicated. I mean, sometimes you don't get around it. Maybe it's the same with triggers, but in general, I would prefer kind of this way that you derive the things from existing data on the fly, because it kind of ensures that things stay more consistent.
Nice. I think that's a good
last word.
Good last word. Good final word. We adjourn for 15 minutes or so while Wolfgang gets ready for everything. So once again, thanks so much.